Hello and welcome to Fast Horses Today. Today we are going to cover the 2026 Preakness Stakes, which happens over at Laurel Racecourse, and that's on Saturday, May 16th. So again, the Preakness at Laurel Racecourse, a different wrinkle in what has been a historic race, the Preakness being run at Pimlico. So as we know, Pimlico is getting revitalized, revamped. They couldn't run the race there, so they went over to neighboring Laurel, which to be quite honest, I have not bet a whole lot of races at Laurel in my lifetime. I mean, as we all probably have done, we've sat at a racetrack or an OTB, saw a lot of simulcast signals. You might have bet some races here and there, which I certainly have done. I've actually been to Laurel Racecourse many years ago, but really, have not bet a whole lot. But I am really excited about the possibility of a Preakness card running at Laurel. I think it's going to be, a lot of differences, as opposed to that traditional card over at Pimlico Racecourse. And that's, given the Preakness race as well as the undercard races. So let's get started for Preakness Day on May 16th. So as I mentioned, it's going to be at Laurel Park. The Preakness is the 13th race of the day. The 13th race at Laurel on Saturday has an approximate post time. That's 7:01 Eastern, so 6:01 here in the Central Time Zone, and just after 4 o'clock in the Pacific Time Zone. So we covered all the time zones here, and that's the 13th race in a marathon card. As I mentioned, it's at Laurel. I think differences are going to be, I do believe that, in the undercard, historically, the undercard, it seems like the local horses don't really have as much of a chance. The ship-ins usually just come and take the money, the stakes money. I feel it'll be a little different here at Laurel. I think that the home track advantage might play a little bit better, in some of these races. So if you're playing the pick 5, playing the pick 4, pick 3s, maybe keep an eye on that. I'm certainly going to. But let's get started in the Preakness, the 13th race. So they're going to be going a mile and 3/16 around that dirt course. And, Laurel Racecourse is a mile and an eighth around. So, if you're betting tracks around the country, you're not as familiar with Laurel. Gulfstream Park is a mile and an eighth around. I'm sure there's a lot of Gulfstream bettors out there. Certainly here in Chicago, we used to have Arlington Park. Arlington Park was a mile and an eighth in circumference. So be that as it may, when they run the two-turn races, that first turn comes up pretty quickly. So they're going to go a mile and 3/16, which they don't really do a whole lot of those races there at Laurel Park. It'll give the horses a little bit of time to get to that first turn. They're not starting right on the turn as they traditionally would do in their mile and an eighth or mile and a 16th races. Gives them a little bit more time. But in studying this race, I just feel there's a lot of horses that like to be running forward, either on the lead or just forward positions. And I really think that's going to end up having a direct outcome in this race. Much like we saw in the Kentucky Derby, they went very quickly early, which, I kind of expected, but, I didn't expect the race to fall apart as much as it did, and horses coming from way back like they did. But, I do expect there to be a pretty good pace, here in the Preakness. There are several horses that can show a lot of speed, in forward position. I don't think they're going to come from well back like they did in the Derby. Certainly two different races, two different, days, mutually exclusive of each other. But, let's go through some of the things here in the Preakness, and then I'll give you my selection. So first of all, we've got the one horse in Taj Mahal. Taj Mahal, trained by Brittany Russell, written by her husband, Sheldon Russell. So, these husband and wife team, they team up quite a bit, over the last several years. Brittany Russell's a very, very capable trainer. She's training for a big outfit here with SF Racing, Starlight, Madacat, that whole group. These are folks that are very serious about horse racing, have a lot of horses, they spend a lot of money, in the sales and buying horses. And, I think they even breed as well. But, you'll see these folks, horses with Bob Baffert, with Todd Pletcher, with Brittany Russell. So nice to see Brittany Russell. She's a local trainer there in Maryland. And, there's a local horse, too. Now, this horse has 3 starts, all at Laurel. And, in watching the film on this horse, I do feel like, this horse certainly has that home track advantage. This horse broke his maiden back in February in a sprint race. Didn't have the best of trips, kind of had a rough start, came closing, showed a lot of professionalism. Brittany Russell took this horse, back into, at Maryland, and Laurel put the horse in a stakes race at a mile. They ran on a muddy / I think it was a little sloppy. That was the Miracle Wood. That's a one-turn mile there at Laurel. This horse I thought passed with flying colors. The horse got out nicely, ended up really fighting the entire race with a horse named Let's Go Lando. And it showed a lot of grit, a lot of heart. So, that shows this horse really has a lot of ability. On the buyer scale, there was a nice improve there as well. Showed me a lot there. They ended up, keeping the horse in Maryland. Brittany Russell trains there. My guess is this was probably, on purpose. She kept the horse there in the Federico Tessio, which, the Federico Tessio has always been known to be a prep for the Preakness, but, I don't know that it's produced a winner in quite a long time. But, this horse ended up running in the Tessio, which is a 1 1/8 race. In the 1 1/8 race, they start pretty close to that clubhouse turn there. Taj Mahal overcame a nice bit of adversity. He was number 10 out of 10 horses. Ended up clearing the field. Sheldon Russell on him. The horse ended up shooting out to a big lead. And, I was thinking maybe this horse is just beating up a bad bunch of horses. But, in looking at the horses he ran with, there are some live horses in there. Not so bad, I didn't think. Here's what I really liked about that run. Taj Mahal opened up a big lead. Going towards the far turn, maybe mid-back stretch towards the far turn, Sheldon Russell backed him up a little bit where they came, the field came closed in. Now, normally you would think a horse would just give it up at that point and, just kind of pack it in, maybe have to fight for a placing there. But Taj Mahal really just took off again. So I don't know if that was by design, if that was an education or whatever, but what it shows me is when horses show different gears, within a race, it just shows me a lot of talent personally. He ended up blowing the field out by, almost 10 lengths there. So I really like what Taj Mahal's done at Laurel. In the progression of races from a sprint race to a 1-turn mile to a 2-turn 1 1/8. This horse has been training really nicely, and this is a serious racehorse. They paid over $500,000 for this horse by Nyquist out of a quality road mare. And as I mentioned, serious connections. Brittany Russell is definitely trains for them, and she's trained some nice horses. We've seen her pair up with her husband, and this horse is 5-1. Big shot here in this Preakness here. The 2-horse, Ocelli. Ocelli ran a nice third at a big price. End up helping people in those trifecta plays if you had Ocelli. Ocelli's still a maiden. Ocelli's improving. Has shown a couple nice races. Gaffleone sticks with this horse. I think the horse benefited from that really fast pace. Ocelli was one of the horses that came closing. Ended up coming third. Got beat by the first 2 horses in Golden Temple and Renegade. I think this horse is going to get overbet by the pure fact that people saw he ran a nice race in the Kentucky Derby. I don't have this horse, in there. I'm going to go against Ocelli. The 3-horse Kruper for Donnie Van Hemmel. Donnie Van Hemmel been around for a long time. I know Van Hemmel trained here in Chicago for quite a while. 30-1, Junior Alvarado. Don't have much to say about Kruper. I don't see anything there. The 4-horse Robusta, Doug O'Neill. Doug O'Neill puts Rafael Bejarano on the horse. This horse went the Southern California route, on way to the Kentucky Derby. Ended up drawing in. Robusta was on the also eligible list. Ended up drawing in, kind of had a rough start. Didn't really do much there. O'Neill puts this horse back in. This horse could show some forward position, but I don't have Robusta doing much here. The 5-horse who is talking for Danny Gargan and Irad Ortiz on the horse. 20-1 the program. Now, this is a big purchase price, $600,000 horse, by Good Magic. And, we see some of the Good Magics. They're big horses, big, nice-looking horses, which this one is as well. I think this horse might improve. I do have this horse underneath in my plays. I think Talkin could improve and maybe get a slice here, second or third. I do have the horse in there, that being the 5-horse Talkin. The 6-horse was Chip Honcho. Chip Honcho for Steve Asmussen. Asmussen puts on Jose Ortiz. That was the hero of the Kentucky Derby, Jose Ortiz, beating his brother. Chip Honcho's 5-1 in the program. This horse came through the Fairgrounds, Louisiana route to the Kentucky Derby. Ended up not making the Derby. He ran in that series there. Ran up against, horses like Golden Tempo. And, showed some nice races. I certainly think Chip Honcho could possibly hit the board. I don't have the horse winning, but possibly hitting the board there. The 7 horses, The Hell We Did for Todd Fincher. Todd Fincher legs up Luis Saez on the horse. Now, Fincher, I am definitely familiar with Fincher. He's sent horses to California for the Del Mar meet. Fincher is, really trained in the Southwest. I think he does a really nice job. As we saw, Fincher ended up winning. Todd Fincher won the I think he won the Dubai, I'm sorry, not the Dubai, but the Saudi Cup a couple years ago with his big horse. The name escapes me. But anyway, Fincher certainly gets it done on the big stage, as we saw there. I think the Hell We Did, the 7 horse here, I think that he's got a shot to, maybe come third. I think this horse ran some nice races. He really showed a nice race in the Lexington. I'm not exactly sure what was there in the Lexington, but I thought he ran nicely for his first time around 2 turns. Saez really got a lot out of the horse. He might do it again. 15-1, we'll put him underneath. The 8 horse, don't have much to say about that. It's a Safi Joseph horse, bull by the horns. No, don't see that horse there. The 9 horse is the Chad Brown horse, Iron Honor for Flavien Prat. Now, when Flavien Prat teams up with Chad Brown, you've always got to take a second look at that. These guys do certainly a great job. A couple changes here with Iron Honor. Blinkers are coming off this horse. This horse had blinkers on 3 times. Manny Franco was on the horse too. They're switching over to Pratt. So I don't think it's a knock on Franco. I think just Flavien Prat and Chad Brown team up for a lot of big races. Iron Honor strikes me as a horse who, the Wood Memorial was a tough race coming from that outside post. He kind of got the steam taken out of him being wide around there. I think the horse can improve here and run a better race. I put this horse underneath Iron Honor, 9-2. We'll put this horse underneath. I think this horse can go second or third. The 10 horse was Napoleon Solo. Now, Napoleon Solo, I don't have this horse anywhere. I'm not putting this horse in, but this horse might give my selection some trouble. This horse does show high speed, very high speed in his races. He shows some sprint speed over at Aqueduct, showing some fast fractions. This horse shot out to the lead in the Wood Memorial from the 1 hole. Paco Lopez put this horse out there. I'm not exactly sure what happened and why this horse folded like that. A little bit disappointing in why that happened. And I don't know that, Napoleon Solo's 2 races in, as a 3-year-old have just left a lot to be desired. So, but I think this horse can maybe cause some trouble in this race because he's got this high speed. You see he's been training at Belmont on their training track. It worked out at 110 early May. This horse, is going to get out there. So 8-1, but I don't have Napoleon Solo in there. Corona d'Oro, don't have anything to say about Corona d'Oro. I just don't see anything there. Incredibolt, they decided to bring the horse back from the Derby. Riley Mott, who is the son of Bill Mott, he did some soul searching there, and horse, I guess, is doing well since his run in the Kentucky Derby, so putting him in. He's 5-1. I don't see it. I see a bounce after that Derby effort. I think Incredibolt had a really, really clean trip, if you can say that, in a 20-horse field. I think Incredibolt, I don't know that he's up to snuff. I don't have him in there. Great White, as we saw, I think that was the horse he got scratched at the gate there in the Kentucky Derby. That's quite unfortunate, but, they're putting him in here. Great White certainly could be part of the pace brigade, but I don't have him doing much. And then finally, the 14 horse. 14 horse is Pretty Boy Mia. Pretty Boy Mia, don't have this horse, doing anything as far as the finish, but this horse certainly could have a say in the outcome. This horse shows a lot of speed. He's going to come from the 14 hole and clear to try to clear the field. May be able to do that. He shows sprinter speed in a 22:44 effort there at Aqueduct in late March. Those are fast fractions for a track like Aqueduct, and then he followed that up with another speedy race in a 1-turn mile. Don't have this horse in there, but he certainly could be a factor, with his speed and, getting out there. So let's recap the picks. I'll give you my pick, and we'll recap the bets as well for the Preakness. So for the Preakness, my pick in the Preakness is going to be the 1 horse, that being Taj Mahal. Spoke very nicely of this horse. I know Brittany Russell is a really good trainer. She teams up with her husband, Sheldon Russell, running for big connections there. She's won races for these folks before. The only trouble I see Taj Mahal maybe having is if they commit to going to the lead from the 1 hole, there are some horses that are outside of them, could really push them and just kind of burn it up. So, I kind of feel like, Sheldon Russell, he's a good jock and certainly knows how to ride there in Laurel, Maryland. I see him playing the break where, he'll get out there. If horses want to cook it up outside of him, I feel his horse is talented enough where he might take back, keep that rail position, and just make a nice move. So we're going to see. I think this horse could be versatile, even though you see he's shown some speed early on. I think this horse, very talented. So I am going to go with Taj Mahal as the winner of the Preakness. I do have some bets here to make, in the Preakness, so let's get to those. Okay, so for the Preakness, as I mentioned, I'm going to make the win bet on the one horse, Taj Mahal. Then I've got some trifecta plays. The trifecta, I'm going to take Taj Mahal on top with the 5-9 with all. I'm going to take Taj Mahal on top with all with 5-9. And then if you want to play that trifecta again with a key, we're going to key Taj Mahal with the 5-6-7-9. So if you make those three trifecta plays, that's a total of $60 on those trifecta plays. And if you make the win bet on Taj Mahal, you bet what fits you. So if you decide to bet this, I wish you the best of luck. It's what I'm going to play. You can always add or subtract to this, make your alterations. I thank you so much for watching Fast Horses today and our picks for the Preakness. Please do me a favor, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. It certainly will help me and it'll deliver content to you for free. Think of it as like Uber Eats. That doesn't charge you. You can always like or dislike or make comments. Let me know what you think about the 2026 Preakness. I'd like to hear from everybody. Make good comments, make bad comments. We can create a discussion. So as always, thank you so much for watching our Preakness coverage. We'll be back for coverage over the weekend, probably from Santa Anita, the Great Race Place. So good luck to you over in Maryland. Wishing those folks there a very safe and happy Preakness. Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in.